at the Work at Home Mom Strategy Hour. So we're starting our Work at Home Mom Strategy Hour today with Amy Lynn Andrews. Amy's from Blogging with Amy, and she's a successful blogger, author, and work at home mom. She specializes in teaching people how to manage their time so they can realistically get as much work done possible, and specifically for moms working at home. So I wanted to dig into some of Amy's secrets, because I will admit I'm not that great with time management. So I thought, let's find out some of Amy's secrets. I've been really impressed with her blog and all of the material she shares with her readers. So Amy, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started blogging.
Well, I am, first of all, hi Susan. It's good to finally actually talk to you in person.
Yes, this is our first time ever talking face to face.
Yes, it is. It's always fun to meet new people from the online world. Well, I started blogging in actually 2004 was when I started my own. So I had seen blogs before then and thought it was kind of an interesting thing, and really I was interested in, like, could I really do this? Did I have what it takes to do it? So I set up my first blog then, and then have been blogging ever since. For the first 6 years or so, it was hobby blogging really, and then it was really in 2010 that I decided to really try to make a job out of it really, and so it's been almost 4 years, I guess, since that point, and it's kind of a wild ride, but fun, so fun.
Well, one of the things that made me laugh, I was reading your book last night. Okay, I read it. I love your book. Your book is called, you tell us actually just really briefly what it's called, and I'm going to share about me reading it last night.
Okay, yeah, so it's called Tell Your Time, and if you go to tellyourtime.com, you'll get there, or my main site is amylynnandrews.com. You can get there too. So. But yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah, and so I love it because it's a really succinct book. There's not extra fluff in there to waste your time and fill pages. Gets right to the point. I love how honest you are in there, and I love that you use your real life examples, like your goals, your roles that you play. You've put those in there, and your actual schedule. And I really found that it helped me, because even though I'm different than you, I have some of the similarities, and so it sort of helped me to right away start thinking about my own roles and goals and how I would break out my time calendar. So I love that. The other thing that made me laugh, though, which when I was reading it, is that you say you don't like to write. So in it, you're like, oh, I don't like to write. I'm so glad this is done. And I'm like, hello, Amy. You're a blogger. What do you mean you don't like to write? You write all the time. So tell me about that. How do you claim that you don't like to write?
Well, because I really don't. Writing for me is comes really, really hard. And so, okay, I'll give you the honest truth. All right.
Okay.
The reason, the kind of the seed for the blog that I started way back at the beginning was that one day I get this email from my cousin.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, check out my new website. Like, he had just started a nonprofit organization and had gotten a website for the nonprofit. And I don't know what it was about that. I have a competitive streak. And so when I saw that, for me back then, a website was like, it was like, oh my goodness, if you have a website, you're like amazing. Like this huge, big brand or this company or whatever. And so when he sent it to me, I'm thinking to myself, wait, I know him. Like, he's my cousin. I was like, well, if he can get a website, I can get one too. So
yes. Oh, that's hilarious.
That's really how it all started. And so when I started researching it, like, how do you make a website? Because that's where, I knew nothing about blogging or whatever. How do you get a website? A lot of people had recommended starting a blog. It was like the easiest way to sort of create your own website, right? So that's really how I started it. My intention was never to write, but once I started it using a blogging platform, because that was the easiest way to get a website, it was like, oh man, now I gotta write.
Oh, that's excellent. So what were you blogging about on your first site? What was the content mostly?
Well, actually, had no idea what I was going to write when I started, and when I realized the idea was to keep this thing going, I thought, well, I guess I'll just write about my life. And at the time, my husband was a pastor in upstate New York, and it was like we had a really hard experience in that church, and so I started just writing about my life as a pastor's wife, and I was really struggling. And I had Googled before, pastor's wives. Surely there's other pastor's wives that are struggling, right? But I couldn't find anybody. Everybody else who had a site, there weren't that many back then, but the only ones I found were like pastor's wives who like loved every minute of it, and they were having church people over at their house all the time, and they led the choir, or they like all of this stuff. And I was just like, I cannot relate. I just want out, So it was really sort of like, well, I don't have anything to write about. I'm supposed to write because this is a blog, so I'll just write about my experience, and then maybe there's other people Googling the same thing I Googled, and maybe they'll find my site and and feel like, hey, I'm not the only one. So really, that's what it was. My life as a pastor's wife.
That's so interesting, and I love what you say there, how in those early days of blogging, it was really very much a lot of people finding authentic voices similar to themselves, and really finding commonality in a way that that was just so new to people, really, because people hadn't been honest online probably ever before, really. When you think about it, like you were saying, who you were finding online was, just everyone who was all sort of perfect. And that was probably extraordinarily refreshing for you.
Yeah, it was when people started, visiting my blog and emailing me, really, with the emails like, thank you so much for, sharing your story. I thought I was the only one. Pastor's wives, actually, it's quite common, and they say being a pastor's wife is one of the most lonely places to be, because you can't talk to people freely a lot and stuff like that. So
I can imagine that. I can imagine that. Interesting. All right. Well, let's dig into some more about what you're doing currently, and with your blog right now, I'm really impressed with a lot of the material that you're getting out there. I like the way you've broken your blog into two areas, right? You have your personal, and then tools and blogging how-tos and stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about your decision to split it and how you sort of manage your site? I'm going to bring your site up here and screen share it. But go ahead.
Sure. I can't say that it's all a very well organized plan. Let's just put it that way. Because you know how it is. You start blogging and then you get all of these different ideas, and I don't know. I'm the type of person that loves to start stuff and I hate to finish it, and so I start 20 million blogs because like, oh, this is a good idea. Oh, that's a good idea. So it all kind of came together. Because what happened is I was writing my personal site about being a pastor's wife for all of those years, and then when I decided to try to make some income, it wasn't a topic that I wanted to monetize. I actually tried to monetize it at one point, and it was a disaster. Because the feedback was like, "What happened? Like, we liked your post before. We didn't want all this stuff, whatever." So anyway, that's a lesson learned. So then what happened was I realized that there were all these people asking about, well, I kind of fell into blogging, and now I need to do this, and I don't know how to make WordPress do that, or I don't know how to do that, and I'd be like, oh, well, you just do that. Oh, you just do that. And this happened a lot on Twitter. And so finally I just got asked so many times, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to make this site that gives you like step by step. This is how you make a blog. This is how you set it up, and that's how Blogging with Amy was born. So it was like Blogging with Amy. and then my personal site, then we left the church in New York, and then that was kind of no longer relevant in my life. So blogging with Amy kind of became the main thing. Well, now I think, I have 6 years worth of content sitting over there, that I'd love to pull in. So my plan is actually to start pulling in more content to that second half of my blog. If you go, like what you're screen sharing now, like the notebook part, because I really do have a lot of content and notes and things that I've kept that I just never published over the years. So, and stuff that I have published. So
yeah, well, it's really interesting, and I wanted to bring that up and point out how you handled that very common problem that I hear from a lot of bloggers. A lot of bloggers start just like you did with just a random hobby that then turned into something, and a lot of people had that challenge like you had with, you've got this blog, how do you monetize it? You make sort of a stab at it, an attempt to do it. Your other audience is like, what have you done? We don't like this. Or they just, the type of monetizing, there's just not really a way to make it work. And then they sort of give up, or they just don't know where to go. So I thought yours was a really great example of how you took a couple of your major skills. One is how to blog, since you've been doing that, and the other is time management. So you've taken a couple of these very helpful answers to problems that women have, and you're monetizing them. So let's talk more about the time management side. First of all, were you always interested in and good at managing your time?
Okay, I'm a lot better at managing my time in my head than in reality. So one of my strengths is to take information and organize it. So I love doing that. But when it comes right down to real life, actually implementing it, I'm more of a thinker than a doer, right? Let's say it that way. So I can take, like, the whole thing about the time management is just how it's really, let's see, I'm like tripping all over myself here. Okay. The whole book just lays out the way time management should work as far as I can see it. It's about, using chunks of time in your day and figuring out what really belongs there, because so often it's just like so-and-so calls up and wants to do X, Y, and Z, and you look on your calendar, is there space there? And, oh, there's space there, you plug it in, but you never really stop to ask yourself if that thing that you're plugging in is really worth plugging in. Is it really worth your overall goal? Yeah, well, so.
I love that. Like I was saying to you just before the call started, I read your book last night, and I was actually reading it at about midnight. Well, I read part of it earlier in the day while I was on my iPhone. I love it. I just bought it off of Kindle, and I don't actually have a Kindle, but the thing I love about Kindles, you don't actually have to have a Kindle anymore. And I loaded it to my phone, and it's really readable, like very succinct. And so I read half of it on my phone while I was waiting for my daughter at one of her activities. So I read half of it then, and then I read the other half laying in bed just before I went to sleep last night. And it's super. So it was. I really love that you didn't sort of toss in extra fluff to just sort of make it longer, but it really got to right to the meat of what time planning and time management is about. And it's like you just said there, it's about analyzing your goals, right? And your roles. I love the way you laid it out into. Tell us a bit about that, about your strategy of thinking of the roles that you play. I liked the way you did that, and then how you tied that into your goals, because I often get overwhelmed. I'm really bad, I'll be honest, I'm really bad with putting anything on paper. I think to be honest, it's my fear of failure that doesn't let me write things down. It's so true. It's a thing I struggle with. It's like if I write that goal down, I'm going to not reach it and I will fail. And so I won't write the darn goals down. It's a terrible, terrible thing I deal with. But I love the way you really simplified that. Tell us a little bit more about that role transfer into goals.
Right. So that's how okay, let me back up and say I'm with you. Like, the whole goal setting thing is so overwhelming to me. The idea that I need to make these goals and then break them into little chunks. You know how that's what everybody says. You set your big goal and break it down into smaller chunks, and there you go. There's your goals. And I always felt like I would walk away going, okay, but how? How do I do that? You know, it's hard to do that. So really, the roles and goals piece of the puzzle for me was my attempt at answering the how question. How do you actually take your life's goal or your 10-year goal or your 5-year goal and come up with the mini goals to get you there? So basically you just ask yourself, what are my roles in life? So my roles are, I'm a mom, I'm an entrepreneur or an online business owner, you know, whatever your goals are. I might be a student, or I might be a full-time worker, or whatever. And then for each of those roles, then you think about, okay, in each of those roles, what are 3 things that I can do to make, to be a great full-time worker, or to be a great mom, or to be a great online business owner, or whatever. What are 3 things I really want to do? And then make sure that the activities that go with those things are plugged in to your weekly schedule. So you always know that you're covering those things that are going to help you become better moms, or better parents, or better spouses, or better whatever.
Exactly. We've got some great questions coming in here in the event. There's so much information we want to get out of you here. This is fantastic. So I'm just scrolling down here and looking at some of the questions. We had a great question from Furley. Furley is a huge fan of yours. Furley's been working with us in our intern program, and she was working on our blogging resources page, and she included you. She was the one to choose 10 different sites, and Amy, she chose yours, and included that in our blogging site, our blogging resource page. So if you go to 5minutesformom.com/blogging, you can get to some resources, and you'll find your site listed there. So Amy, Furley says here in her question that Amy posted once on Facebook that we should never sit down to work without a plan. She'd love to hear you elaborate on planning your work time to get everything done when you're ready to work. So how do you plan that actual work time and sit down with your plan?
So what I have done is I've chopped up when I think of what it takes to run my blog and my online publishing stuff, what are 5 areas that I have to cover? One of them is I have to create content. That is, that's writing posts, that's creating videos, or things like that. So create is one. One of them is reading. So I read and I read and I read in order to keep up, and all of the information about blogging and social media and stuff. I read a ton, so I have to carve out time for reading. Engage. So create, read, engage. Engage is another one. So this is like social media. So this would be answering Facebook posts, this would be email, this would be tweets, this would be any interacting with other people online. And then there's another piece of the puzzle, which is projects. So these are things that wouldn't normally fall under my typical creating category. So creating would be like my regular blog posts or my weekly newsletters. But a project might be an ebook I'm going to publish, or something like that, something kind of outside of my normal routine. And then the last one that I've added recently is admin. So that's like paying the bills, or stuff like that. So then what I do is go, okay, how much time do I have to devote to work each day? And I have to tell you, this really changes. Right now I'm in the middle of this transition where my kids are now going back to school. My husband's work schedule is about to change. We've added some activities, sports activities and stuff that has drastically reduced the amount of time that I have to devote to my blogging and other stuff I'm doing online. So if I say, okay, I have two hours a day to devote to blogging, so I take those five areas and I decide how much I want to spend on each, in each area. The bulk of it, I would say, is creating, and for me, another big piece of that is reading. Admin and projects and engaging are a little less. Projects and admin are probably the least amount of time, and then engaging. That's hard because, man, it's so easy to get
the time just goes so fast. It's like, yikes, 2 hours, you haven't even got off your Facebook and Twitter feed, and 2 hours is just gone. I mean, it's amazing how fast.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And
so do you physically write out a to-do list for those? So say you're sitting down and you've got 2 hours. Is that 2 hours usually in a block for you, or is it usually spread out?
I try to block it, yes. I try to block it, but I mean, the reality is life, and I don't have a separate office, so we're just like I'm working in our bedroom. So yeah. My kids are, in and out constantly, and sometimes I'll go to the library or go to the coffee shop or, something if I really need to get something done. But yes, this process for me is always in flex, and here's another way that it's in flex. But typically, writing things down, the best days that I have are when I write down exactly what I have to do for that day. And then I can blaze through my list and it's great. And I actually have been using pen and paper for that, even though there's a part of me that just wants to be all digital, but man, even
there's some power in just a paper and a pen.
Yeah.
One of the things I like about too is that it feels sort of kind of almost less pressure somehow to myself. Like if I just sort of jot it on a piece of paper, it's not as like I don't know. Like again, I told you before that I have this. I'm really brutal with my fear of failure problems in life. It's a big overriding theme in my life, okay? So it's something I struggle with all the time. And I struggle with honesty in my schedule. I struggle with honesty in my budget, too. This is something I have a really hard time with. I hate writing down my budget for where to spend my money, and I hate writing down my schedule to budget out my time, because the fact is I don't have enough money and I don't have enough time, and I don't want to admit either. So if I write it down, it's too depressing. It's like I can't do it. So somehow I know it won't fit in my schedule, but I have to make it fit. So I kind of go through life with this, well, it won't fit, but it has to fit, so I have to get it all done, whether I have time to or not. And so I live with this heightened stress all the time because I know I don't have enough time, but I'm shoving it in anyway. Yeah. And it's a really, really tough way to look. But, when I look at a schedule written out, like when I looked at your sample schedule in your book, I'm like, dude, no way! Like, I need way more time to work. Like, I'm like, what? A few hours here? Like, no, I need way more time. So there is an honesty that you have to be honest with yourself if you're going to get to a place of peace with your schedule. And I think you talk about that in the book before. To get to that place of being relaxed, you have to pull things out ahead of time and not try to jam them all in, right?
Yes, and it's so funny that we're having this conversation today because I'll tell you my personal story. I'm like really having a hard time with this right now because I'm exactly like you. Somebody on my blog, and I really need to pull her names to give her credit because she said it so well. She said, I underestimate the time it's going to take me to do stuff, and I overschedule. And those two things in combination, I know for me, are disastrous. And so,
that defines Janice and I. Like, absolutely definition of. Oh my gosh, continue.
it's scary. You know, we just got back. We went on a family vacation, and so we were away for a week. And what happened was is we invited my in-laws, who are wonderful. I hit the jackpot with the in-laws. My in-laws met us there and stayed with us a week. But do you know how it is when you're in public or you're with somebody else and suddenly it's like you're so much more aware of how you're interacting with each other and the things that you're saying and the way that you're saying it and stuff. And having my in-laws there, my husband and I realized how much our relationship with our kids is all about asking them to do things multiple times, right? And I was so conscious of this fact that they were not very good listeners. And I was feeling the anxiety and the stress and the frustration, and it was a huge wake-up call for us, because I was like, we are, you know, I like to think of myself as relatively put together. I mean, we are not perfect. I tend to be a yeller, true confession. I yell. So I'll say things once or twice kindly. You know, could you please empty the dishwasher? Could you please empty the dishwasher? And nobody's listening to me. So by the 4th time and the 5th time and the 6th time and then by the 10th time, I'm like, why isn't anybody emptying the dishwasher? How many times do I have to say it? How come nobody listens? You know, so I'm like flipping out. And so with my in-laws there and a little bit more self-control, I was just like, this has got to stop. Anyway, I didn't sleep very much the whole vacation because I was like tossing and turning about this whole thing. And what I realized was just what you said. Too many things I'm trying to shove into my schedule, and so it's like there's like right under the surface is this constant frustration all the time, like this constant stress, constant frustration, and I feel like I've always got at any given moment about 50 things to do. And so one of the ways it comes out is when I'm dealing with my kids, it's like I want to tell you one time to empty the dishwasher because I don't have time to tell you 10 times to empty the dishwasher.
It is so true, and that's so on the nail that the parenting side is really tough to combine when you're feeling stressed about your work schedule and you're trying to shove in too much stuff. And so this is what happens to Janice. I mean, and Janice is way more of a yeller than I am. But anyway, but I yell too, especially I yell at Janice's kids, not mine. Anyway, but the thing is, it's hard when we're, as women working at home moms, I'm telling you, we are under just a ridiculous amount of pressure. Like being a mom is more than a full-time job. Running a business is more than a full-time job. And then you add those two together, obviously, we're right there, just those two things. We're trying to do more than there is time in a day. Then if you add on being a wife, being a friend, if you're ever going to maintain any friends. I didn't have any time for those anymore. And heck, if you're going to try to exercise or put any time on yourself, like if you already, we really are dealing with too much stuff. And so that is the problem. And so like I'm looking in the questions here, and it's definitely, we're not the only ones. Everyone feels this. Jill, my friend, and I really look up to Jill. Jill's amazing. She gets so much done in life, and yet I hear she says the same thing, that she feels pulled in a gazillion directions. So, you know, how do we, she says that she's interested in learning about the time management piece of things. Work and family are both super important priorities, and one shouldn't be above the other, is how she feels. But yet she feels pulled in a gazillion directions. So, you know, how do we, what are some tips that we can prioritize to hit those most important milestones and aspects of our lives? And it is, like I say, there's another person says, well, just how, you know, and exactly, well, how do we do this? How do we do it? And we're all sort of looking for that magic answer. Lindsay Miller Peterson here says, how is the trick? It's important for me to feel like I'm balancing everything that I'm responsible for, but it can be overwhelming to feel like you're doing your best in each area without neglecting something else. And can I just say right up front, ladies, I just want to be honest. I can't do everything that I'm supposed to do, and I have let areas totally slide in. I mean, Janice and I I sometimes I feel bad if people sort of look at us from the outside and look like, oh, we've got it all together, you know, because it looks like we have a successful blog and we got, you know, pictures of our happy kids, and people sometimes might assume that, oh, it's so easy, or they've just got it already down like that. We don't. I mean, our lives are chaos. We're totally stressed out, and we do manage to get sort of enough done that we sort of put things together. But the truth is, over the last, I mean, I've been working at home for a decade over various ways. My oldest girl is 8 years old now, and I have a 5-year-old. And the truth is, I have not exercised and taken care of myself enough as I should over the last how many years. And let's just be totally honest, I'm divorced now too. Janice and I are both divorced. You know, I used to remember saying, like I said to you before, you're supposed to be a mom, which was like my ultimate, most important role. That's to me my most important thing. And then running a business is more than a full-time job. You put those together, and then it was like when I'm supposed to be a wife and friends, and I don't have time to keep my local friends. I totally slacked in that department and didn't put enough time over the years into my local friends. So I got lots of friends online, but I didn't invest in taking the time to go physically out with local friends. And yeah, so the problem is we're trying to do too much, and there's going to be ways and areas that we are going to fail, and I think one step is to recognize at least that we will fail, that other people are failing, and really don't look at other people and say, how do they do it all, and assume that they are, because I think that is a very defeating place to put yourself in, and I know I struggle with that all the time. I'll look at Jill and just think, if only I could be Jill, like, if only I could be Amy, if only I could be whatever, I'd get it all done, and it would be so much better. But we all have different situations, and we're all letting certain balls drop. Wouldn't you say, Amy? At certain times, you have to let a ball drop, and to juggle some of them that are more important to you. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Oh, my life is strewn with dropped balls. It is absolutely the truth. And I mean, I told you, like I just said, on vacation, and I'm a yeller, and I do not. I like really struggled the last couple of weeks. I was working part-time, as you know, I was doing social media for an organization 10 hours a week. As soon as I got home from vacation, as sad as it was, I gave my notice. It was like, there's no way I can do it. And I think for myself, okay, the how question. The how question for me is, the bottom line is, you can't, what is the phrase, you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip or whatever? I mean, we only
out
have
of a stone, isn't there? Yeah.
Okay, or a stone.
Yeah, something like that.
You only have time for, enough time in the day to do what you can do. So, people look at me, and I tell my husband all the time, I'm like, I feel like such a hypocrite because they all want to talk to me about time management, and look at me. I can't even keep things together. My children are falling apart. I've totally neglected them. They're not totally, but I mean, the bottom line is that I'm supposed to be a homeschooler, and I will tell you that I don't have a lot to show for my homeschooling as far as, my ducks are not in a row with homeschooling at all. And so then as I kind of think back, I think what's helpful for me is to go one step further. Why? Why is it so hard for me, on the one hand, to say homeschooling and my children are so important, and yet on the other hand, my actions are totally not lining up with that? And for me, homeschooling is very difficult. I'm a reluctant homeschooler. It was never my intention to homeschool, but we feel like at this point it's really the only viable option for us. And I'm grateful for the opportunity, but my sister taught first and second grades from the time that she finished college, and she knew she wanted to be a teacher from the time that she was a little girl. And I always tell her, how did you get all those genes? She loves being at home, she loves doing all the homeschooling and all of that kind of thing, and it's not my favorite thing. So there's a lot of you know, there's a lot of ego boosting that comes from being online. I mean, let's be honest. People start, you know, oh, that's so great and it's so helpful. And those can be kind of like a drug, you know, those emails that you get about, oh, thank you, that's so helpful. And it's kind of like, yeah, you know what, I matter. I really matter because look at all these people. You know, and it's not bad. It's not bad to be encouraged and that sort of thing. But you know, sometimes I think to myself, am I any better? Okay, this is just for me. I'm not putting this on anybody else. But you know, I watch TV and I watch those shows of moms really struggling. Maybe they are into drugs. Maybe they're into drinking. Maybe they're into, you know, a number of other things that pull them away from their family and just try to and really sort of erase and numb the difficulty that it is to parent and parent well, you know. So is it any different? I don't know. To be online and to constantly seek that, now we're getting into like total psychology.
Yeah, well, but it is true. There's so many interesting facets of our bizarre world as work at home, blogging, women. It's a different beast of a thing, and our friends are more online. We so we gravitate to getting our approval and our enjoyment online as well. It's very complicated, and and then the time that we spend online working also, I think, is an interesting thing. Is sometimes it's hard to get other people in our family to realize when we're working too, right? Because they'll have that feeling, oh, you're just online and so resentment, and then I think a thing that Janice and I have both dealt with is dealing with that with our families, trying to make them really understand that no, we really are working when we're online, or when you're off at a conference, it seems like, oh, you're just off having fun. So in a relationship, like I said, to be honest, we're both divorced now, but when we were married, that was a source of an issue for us. It was hard, resentment back and forth with, is our time as valuable when we're working? And it's just complicated.
It's very complicated.
Yeah, and so if we want to talk more about some of those tips, we've covered a lot of just different. It's such a big topic with so many things that, like, obviously we're going into all of these great tangents. But if we want to try to pull back into some of more of your advice that you share in your book, and so first of all, what would you say your best time saving tip would be? Well, what would you say that would be?
Well, recently, I think it's what Furley referred to. Was it Furley who said, I did post on Facebook, you know, don't sit down to the computer without a plan. Mm-hmm. As far as working at home, if you're working on the computer, I think that's huge. The days that I sit down and without a list in front of me, I'm going to do these things, inevitably, I waste a lot more time than I need to. So that is one big one. But one, I'd say in general, time management is the ability to just let things go, and good things. You know, it's easy to let the bad things go. It's a lot harder to let the good things go. So if you can look at all of the things in your life and be honest with yourself, like you said, and decide which ones really are the best, and to let the others go, you know, I mean, I think in the end you'll come out ahead. And the example that I think is perfect is Apple, you know. I mean, you look at Apple, they have a very narrow range of products, and the products that they do have are excellent, right? So that's their strategy. They say, we're going to focus on, these very few products, and we're going to make them great, and everybody else is going to want to, they're going to add this and that and 50 different variations of that and whatever. We're not going to do that. We're just going to do this one thing. So a lot of times I think I want to be like that, like an Apple, is to, as difficult as it is, because ideas are abundant online, everybody's doing something else, and then you start to feel like you've got to do it all too, you know. It's kind of like there's this restaurant, I don't know if you have it there, I think it's just in the southwestern United States, called In-N-Out. It's a hamburger place.
Oh, I've heard of it. Yeah, we don't have it, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay, but if you go to In-N-Out, like the menu is just like, you can have a double, which is 2 meat patties and 2 cheese slices, a double, a hamburger, or a cheeseburger, and that is about it, you know. But the place is hopping all the time. I mean, you know, so they have focus on just a few things, you know, and fries, one size and style of fries, you know. But they've focused on it, and they've really made a huge impact.
Yeah, no, that's very good advice, and I want to pull in something that Furley has said here in the chat, which I think falls in line with that. She says, when it comes to getting everything done, I've learned that not everything can get done in one day, but I try to spread it out throughout the week. And I think that is a really good point, and one of the things, I think, advantages of using a schedule like you have in your book, where you're showing out your schedule, and you put in a big key that you have in your schedule is putting buffers of time in, right, and not tightly scheduling things. But I think, like Furley said, we, as busy blogging women that can't get everything done, look at your week, not just your day. So then give yourself a break in saying to yourself, okay, if I can't get this task or any of this task done today, that's okay, because I'm doing it later in the week, or I'm doing whatever, and then not beat yourself up that say you can't get such and such task done today because you'll do it later. Another thing that I want to encourage women to do, if it's all possible, is try to think like an like a company is outsourcing. If you look at all your tasks, think of things that you can outsource. And I love the way you were honest in your book, and you said one of your roles is being a home manager, but it's not one of your favorite roles right now. And it's true. Like, so for me, one of my roles is, yes, being a homemaker, and that involves cleaning and whatever. And I hate doing that stuff. It doesn't feel like a top priority task for me. I will outsource some of that. I will get a cleaning lady to come in and do some of the cleaning every week or every 2 weeks. And there's different things, and there's different stages of life that we're in, and that's another thing too. So perhaps there's a certain stage of your life where you're going to hire a little bit more homemaking help. You know, I've had phases. It's really one thing that if you can manage to find someone that can do it for an affordable price and it can work into your schedule, is to have you know, you could hire someone who's a nanny in the neighborhood to come in for like an hour at the end of your day, so the end of their work day, to come in, do your dishes, do an hour of your housework for you that you could be working. So if you can make more money in that hour and hire someone to come in and do your dishes and clean up for an hour, is that not worth your time?
Right.
That is. As women, lots of times I think we don't let that task go because we somehow get it tied up in our vision of who we should be as a proper homemaker. But let it go. You know, if you can find, now not everyone can do that. Not everyone's at that place to do it. But really, if you can make more than the amount it's going to cost to bring someone in for an hour at the end of your night, or at the end of their work day. So say if it's a perfect solution is someone that's like a nanny in your neighborhood. If they can come in for an hour, you pay them for an hour, and that's a valuable time. And for me, that type of stuff is even more valuable than just the hour, because the overwhelm and the stress and the fact I don't want to do it, you know, gets in. And then, but the other thing too is communicating with your spouse, if you do have a spouse or a partner, in sharing some of those tasks. And a lot of times, you know, as women, all that homemaking stuff falls on us. But if you can manage to share it around or be more honest with your spouse to share some of those tasks, that can really help.
Yeah,
I think.
I think another thing too is to get your kids involved if possible. Now, if they're super little, it's harder, but be creative. You know, like for example, I was working on a project a while ago, and it involved a lot of data entry, basically. And, you know, I started thinking, I'm like, you know, my 10-year-old could do this. It wasn't difficult. And I mean, I told her I was going to pay, I forget what I told her. I'll give you, you know, 10 cents for every, you know, line you put in or whatever. I mean, she thought it was the greatest thing, you know. Stuff like that, I think, can really help. Or trading. I've heard a lot of moms like trading, you know, hey, I'll take your kids for an hour, and if you take my kids for an hour tomorrow, you know, that's a great way. Because I know finances, especially when you're starting, can be a huge, you know, a huge prohibitive factor.
Absolutely. I'm a huge proponent of sharing like that. Janice and I have each other, and so we do that all the time. But so we'll constantly like pass the kids back, or I'll look after them, and then that we did that especially when we only had one child each, and to share it. So I really recommend that women find other women that they can share those types of things as well. I'm reading the comments. We've got such a great chat going on here in the live chat. Lots of great suggestions, and some people are saying that their husbands are bigger distractions, or interrupt them more than their kids do when they're at home. And okay, Jill says here she oh yeah, so Jill's asked. She says she just got a huge amount of information on hiring virtual assistants and how awesome that option is, and have we ever used one? Absolutely, we use virtual assistants. So we have a full-time virtual assistant, Jennifer, who I'm constantly singing her praise. She's been with us for a couple years, but we've had assistants varying through the years, but pretty much I think for 5 years or so now, Janice and I have had an assistant who handles email and a lot of those type of admin tasks. We can't get everything done, so no, we absolutely need an assistant. I've also recently been working with interns, so we had an intern program that Furley's been part of, and that's been great. That's another, one side started that, I think a couple of other sites are doing that as well, and that's a great way to, again, what you're kind of doing there is trading off your benefit, how you can benefit someone else and how they can benefit you. So if you've been in business for a long time and you've got knowledge to share, you're trading that knowledge and that experience and that skill and training for them doing some work. So there's lots of different ways to make a barter system work. And I absolutely think I mean, internships are different than bartering, but they kind of some similarities. But I recommend definitely other ways of bartering in all sides of your life, like whether it's trading off babysitting time to guest posting kind of content to I'll do this task for you if you do this task for me, kind of things that where you're more efficient and where someone else can be more efficient.
Yeah.
I really believe in looking hard at your own skills and your efficiencies, and then hiring someone else to do something that you don't love. I was listening to the name's not coming to me right now, but a successful businessman in some training that I was listening to, and he was talking about hiring people that are already playing at what you need to do. So say a great example for this is perhaps creating images, like pinnable images, for instance. I think this is a great example. And I try to hire people to do this sometimes, but now I've gotten myself so much into creating pinnable images all the time that now it's sort of become something that I end up doing quite quickly. But that kind of graphical side is a great thing so say you need some images made for your blog. Well, maybe you're better at some SEO stuff, or analyzing some keywords, or maybe you have a really big stumble following, or Twitter following, or this type of thing. Then you can go to someone who's good at making pinnable images and say, I'll trade you. I will, stumble a bunch of your content or tweet a bunch of your content over a certain amount of time, because say you have a lot of influencers, and in exchange, you can make me some pinnable images for these posts as I come up. And that's a great way to trade off, because that person may just play with PicMonkey for fun. They just they love to do that. That's something that they play at. Do you know what I mean? They love it. It's a passion for them. They're efficient. They're fast at doing that. whereas you could waste an hour trying to make an image and it'll still look bad. You know, not you,
Yeah.
per se, but
well, no, it would. You are talking about me in images.
So I'm not saying that about you, but I'm just saying in general. And I know I struggle with this all the time. But the thing is with images end up becoming such a thing that I've done so much. But I've hired out tons through the years, tons of having people make images for me. Another thing I hire out is all my blog installations, all technical stuff like that. The truth is, I used to be a software developer. I could be techie if I wanted to be techie. I don't like being techie. I hire someone else to be techie. So again, there's all kinds of budget ranges for these different tasks. So you don't have to think, oh, I can't afford someone to do something. Again, try to barter, try to find someone else who will do it for an affordable price or something that's in your budget range. But definitely outsourcing is the biggest solution to the problem that we can't do it all. It's outsource, even if it's your house cleaning.
Right, yeah, you have to. Either, I think in the book I said, you either have to, if you've got too much on your plate, I mean, it's a simple math equation. 2 + 2 is 4. You can't make 2 + 4, 2 + 2 = 6, no matter how hard you try. So either, if you have too much on your plate, you have to drop it, get rid of it, or you have to find somebody else to do it for you. I mean, those are really, it all boils down to that. So I agree, you know, finding somebody else to do it for you is an excellent option. But then I think when you have to just say no, as hard as it is, and I think looking at, if you sit down with a blank sheet of paper in front of you and you think, okay, how do I manage my time, get it all done? Sit down, here's my suggestion. Sit down with a blank piece of paper in front of you, and then instead of looking at the huge list of all the things that you want to accomplish, look at the number of hours in your day that you have to work with. Then once you look at the number of hours in the day that you have to work with, then decide from that whole big list of things that you want to do what will realistically fit in. Realistically. So this is the place where you have to say, you have to have a really good idea of how much time something takes you. I'm a horrible judge of this. I constantly get myself in trouble because I'm constantly thinking that, oh yeah, I could write that post in an hour and really it's going to take me 3, you know? I mean, that happens to me all the time. So realistically, what can you fit in that chunk of time that you have to devote to this? And then work that chunk of time and, you know, tweak your schedule as you go. But then resist the temptation, as hard as it is, resist the temptation to think that what you see everybody else doing, you have to somehow, you know, work it in as well. It's just not worth it. You're just gonna. I'm speaking to myself right now.
Yeah, no,
like, I really gotta do this.
Yeah, no, I know. We all struggle with that same type, those same things. And yeah, so when you're trying to manage all your different to-dos, I just want to ask a couple quick things here. Do you have any productivity tools or apps that you use?
What I've learned about productivity apps is it really depends on how you're wired and what makes you tick. So for me, I have really enjoyed Workflowy. It's called workflowy.com.
Okay.
WORKFLOWY. And it's a way to for me to take notes kind of in outline form. That has been a great way to store. You know how it is, all those things come into your head and they kind of sit there and you're trying to remember them and you really know you should write them down, but you don't know where to write them down or whatever. So Workflowy is a nice dumping ground for me. The other thing there's an app on my phone that I recently came across, Time Management Ninja. Craig Jarrow at the Time Management Ninja told me about it. It's called Drafts, and it's an app.
How do you spell it?
Drafts, DRAFTS.
Oh, it's an app called Drafts?
Yes, yes. Okay. And this is another way that I use to capture you know, those things that hit you at all crazy times, you know, driving in the car or, you know, sitting, you know, in line somewhere or whatever. Drafts is great. But there's this hidden secret about drafts, which is the power of drafts. When you initially open it, looks a lot like, you know, the Notes app on like an iPhone, for example, just that yellow pad of paper type thing, which is fine. But drafts, what I love about drafts is you can set it up to send your notes wherever you want them to send. So, for example, some of my notes go into Evernote. Like, these are things that I just keep, like possible post ideas or articles that I like or notes for various things on the blog. So I can, in drafts, send it to Evernote. I can send an email to myself, like if it's a reminder or something that I need. I can send it to Asana. Asana is a collaboration tool where, you know, if several of us work on one project at a time, it's a nice way to keep track of the projects, and you can comment on the tasks that people are doing.
You want to just spell that? I'll put it into the chat here. What was that?
Yes, it's Asana.
Asana. Asana.
Asana.
Okay. Thank for it.
And there's other ones. Do.com is the same as Asana. If you're more visual, Trello, Trello. It's almost like Pinterest, where you pull in. You can pull in notes, leave notes for yourself. So really, it depends on, you know, how you're wired and what works for you. For a lot of people, pen and paper. You know, there's an app on my phone that I think is an awesome app. I just haven't really gotten into the groove of using it. It's called 30/30.
Like with the words 30, like the digits or the words?
3030. But
30.
there's a
30?
Yeah, 30/30. I can put it in here.
All right. Very
so
cool.
It's a nice.
Oh, here, I've got the link here.
Oh, do you? Okay. There, I'll let you go ahead and do that. Yeah. I use Google, though, probably is my main thing as far as keeping, you know, my Google Calendar and my email. So, those are
a couple of the comments in here. Some people have asked about Cozy, and Jill says that she uses Cozy, C-O-Z-I, or I guess you guys call it a Z, sorry, Canadian here, C-O-Z-I, for grocery shopping. And Cozy does have a lot. We've written about it at 5minutesformom.com a few times. And it does various things. There's other grocery shopping apps which are very handy for keeping track of that. So definitely using apps. Another little app that I am starting to use, I've meant to do this for years and years, and I never do. And so I'm finally trying to get myself in the habit of doing it, and that is I love to walk, okay? I walk all the time. I love to go for big, long walks, and I'm always thinking about post ideas. And then I'm like trying to type it in as I'm walking. But what I've been wanting to do is record them more.
Yes.
But a really great one that I've just started using as an app on my phone is Dragon. Now, I think, well, everyone, I actually have Dragon. Look, I've got the Dragon software for the app here, for the actual program on my computer, which I never use, to be honest. But anyway, they actually have it in an app now. So I'm talking about just like, because Dragon, naturally speaking, they've been the top sort of voice recognition kind of software for years on computers. So they've got an app now. It's actually free. And it's really handy because, I mean, it's not perfect as you're talking into it, okay? It's not perfect. It doesn't get every word. But, for instance, when I was out walking last night, I'm getting post ideas all the time while I'm walking. It clears my head to get ideas. So I can turn on the app there and then just you press record. I say out a couple of sentences and then say process. And then you can either keep adding to and make a long thing and then email it to yourself. You can actually do it to tweet and Facebook. You can do all kinds of things using it. But one of the main ways I'm going to be, and I used it yesterday and I'm going to try to keep using it, is emailing myself post ideas. So getting the main guts of the idea into just from voice right into my phone, email it to myself, and then boom, I've got my post idea. Yes, it needs some work. What you could do if you were if you had a good assistant, and I might even try this with my next intern group, is trying to see if I can train some of my writers to just take my rough, dragon, sent notes that won't make complete sense. But then if you can get someone who's in tune with you enough as a writer, can take your ideas, flesh it out, add the image, whatever, and then boom, get a post done. So if you are at that, if you've got assistants, if you've got people that can do that kind of thing for you, that's a way to turn your exercise time, your walking, into multitasking. A lot of people have, pros and cons to multitasking, and some people believe in not multitasking at all, and some believe in multitasking. And I have to admit, I'm a multitasker. I just have to get more than one thing done usually at a time. So I really do use my phone a lot. Tweeting, a lot of my social management time I'm doing while I'm doing something else. So while I'm waiting for my kids at school, that's when I'm going to buffer some tweets out. That's when I'm going to update. So a lot of my social management, my social media stuff is done while multitasking. But that being said, I am very careful to not multitask too much while I am actually with my kids. My kids totally go berserk if I get on my computer, or if I'm on my phone, they want my phone, that type of thing. So I don't do that much multitasking while I'm actually, supposed to be paying attention to my kids. But while I'm waiting for something, while I'm doing whatever, while I'm eating, I'm multitasking. So to be honest, there is too much to do, and so you won't look into a calendar for me and see me blocking out large amounts of time to tweet or whatever. That's just multitasking stuff.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's a lot of things, like a lot of my reading I do, and I guess included in reading is like listening to podcasts and stuff.
Podcasts are a huge way to multitask successfully. Podcasts. Yeah. If you drive anywhere, like without kids, or you're waiting, or you're walking, you can listen you can even listen to these Hangouts through your iPhone, and that's what I'll do too. I'll listen to other Hangouts while I'm walking, because a lot of the time the most important stuff is not even the watching of it, but the words anyway. So definitely a lot of your learning can be done in multitask mode.
Yeah, I'd say figure out the things in your life that you can do, like you're saying, tweeting or catching up on your feed reader, or things like that you can do while you're what I call idle time or dead time, waiting in line at the grocery store, waiting in line to pick up your kids, and stuff like that. So always be prepared to have with those things, so that when you find yourself kind of hanging out for a while, you can pull up something to read, or
exactly,
things like that.
And by using something like that Dragon app to translate your words into a post, I mean, if you think about it, you're standing there for 5 minutes waiting for your child before school pickup, or 10 minutes. You can get the guts of a good post done. The idea of it by doing something like that. So I'm going to try to do a lot more of that. The other thing is, we're running out of time here, but the other thing is, I think when you're multitasking, try really hard to include your kids in a positive way into your activities. So for instance, exercise. As there's different, now again, I'm not great with this exactly, but there's lots of ways to include your exercise time in with your kids. There's different stages. When they're small, they're in strollers, blah, blah, blah. But, as they get older, one thing that my girls like to do, which I need to spend more time doing, they like to do yoga. They learn yoga at school. I have 2 little girls. And, I mean, obviously they're not going to do a lot of yoga, but you can do some stretches, do a little bit with them. And plus it's showing them and giving them good habits to show you doing these things. And so a lot of different, I try to do a lot of stretching. When for example, if I'm going to watch TV, which I admit I like some TV, okay? I multitask by letting myself do some of my work tasks while the TV is on, or or if I'm going to relax at the end of the night and watch something, do your stretches, do some yoga stretches, do some stretches, lift some weights, do whatever while you're watching TV. So I am a big multitasker for sure. All right, we are running out of time here. Do you have any more parting words or parting tips for us, Amy, before we go? I'm just going to glance over here to see what other questions or comments came in the feed here.
Yeah, I think I would say don't believe the lie that everybody that you see online is doing, doing as much as you think that they're doing.
It's true.
It's just not happening. There's just no physical possible way that as much as the internet tells us we should be doing, even as much as I say to do on my blog, I don't do 3/4 of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't. There's no way. I've never really interacted with, like Susan, you guys do a lot of brand engagement and working with brands. I've never done really any of that. I've never done like private ads. I've never done that. I research it and I can tell you about it. Like I said, I'm a good organizer of information, and I watch other people and I talk to other people, what's working for you, that type of thing. But for me, I've never done it myself. I'm not involved in any ad networks really, like the blog, her ad network, or any of those. So these are areas that I have zero personal experience in, So
I mean, I hear what you're saying there, and to focus on what you're doing, do it well. Don't worry too much about what everyone else is doing. And we all have different niches. Another big thing is everyone has a different support system, and I always try to remember that when I feel like I want to compare myself to someone, and everyone has a totally different support system, so you cannot compare yourself. Someone might have 5 kids, and you think, what on earth, how can they do all of that with 5 kids? Well, they might have 2 grandparents on either side that love to spend time with kids. You don't know. They might have a full-time housekeeper. They might have a husband that loves to cook and do dishes. You just don't know. So you cannot compare yourself. That's the biggest thing. Janice is always starting to fall apart by comparing herself, and I can't even tell you how many times I say to Janice, don't compare yourself. We can't compare ourselves. It's just like I'm a broken record player about that because we do it all the time. Everyone, women especially. I think women are way more prone to compare themselves to each other than men are, and we need to be really careful about that. So,
and the other thing that goes along with that is that you can't assume that somebody who takes who's posting all of this great content. This is a struggle for me. Oh my goodness, they post so much content and they post every day and whatever. For some people, writing comes very easily and naturally for somebody. For other people like me, it doesn't. My posts, the other day somebody said, how long does it take you to write a post? I can't write a post under 3 hours. And I'm like, man, if I could write a post in less than 3 hours, I'd be rejoicing. It takes me 7 or 8 hours sometimes to write or more. Sometimes to write a post. Posts don't come easily for me. So
really
you have to really take that into consideration and be okay with it. So sometimes I post once a week. Sometimes I don't. I mean, is it ideal? Would I like it to be different? Yes. I would, but you know what? It's not going to happen. I just, you kind of got to just let it go, and it's, my strength is in other areas.
Yeah, exactly. You find your strengths, focus on those, and spread your time out as you're planning it through the day. Definitely pick up a copy of your book, Tell the Time. We were going to give away a few copies of this. Darn, I did.
That's right.
Okay, we ran. Is that okay? Should I just quickly?
Yeah,
I'm just
sure.
going to randomly pull up from this going list, okay? And I'm going to look and see. Actually, what I'm going to do? I'm going to just randomly scroll through some people who've been really active here in the conversation, and I'm going to just randomly grab a few. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Can I give away 3 copies?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
I'm just
absolutely.
randomly, I'm doing like a big scroll with my scroll list. This is not very official, people. Please forgive me for not being super, super official with this randoming. I'm just scrolling down, and I'm just going to, where does it land? Okay, Kim Tracy Prince. Kim Tracy Prince, Okay, so she is one. I'm just going to copy her name. I'm just gonna just a second. I'm just putting this in a little.
So if they just want to email me at amylynnandrews@gmail.com, I'll send them a link to the book.
Okay, I'm gonna grab Leanne Wells. I'm just grabbing their names. I'm copying them into a little document, and then I'm gonna paste them on. I'm sorry, and I'm just scrolling. These are some people that have been really active in conversation here. And here, one last one. And ready. Okay, I've just grabbed 3. Forgive me, it wasn't the official grabbing of winners, but the book is extremely affordable. How much does it cost? It's only a few bucks, right?
Yeah, right now it's $2.99. I just put my email list in the stream there too.
Okay.
I mean my email. So yeah, just email me the 3 of you, and then I'll send you a link to download it.
Okay. Okay. Yay. All right. So I've put your names. So I didn't actually at them properly. But look there. It's for Kim Tracy Prince, Leanne Wells, and Renee Roos. I'm not so sure I'm saying their name right. Anyway, so email Amy, and otherwise just grab a copy of the book. I grabbed it. I bought it just through Kindle, and like I said, it's super easy to read through Kindle on your phone, so you can be multitasking while you're reading it. And definitely, it's the kind of book I'm going to go back to and look at all the time, and I'm going to look up those printables that you share on your website that go along with it. You give some free printables to use. Mm-hmm. So we really appreciate all of you guys taking your precious time to join us, and definitely sign up to Amy's newsletter. I love that name. I'm just like, that's so fabulous. Instead of how'd you get that idea for a newsletter?
Well, you know, because I'm all about, I need tips to use, you know, so not just
awesome.
Don't give me the news, tell me what I can use.
Yeah, oh, it's brilliant. I'm just like, oh, that's so brilliant, so clever. All right, so sign up for Amy's newsletter. Thank you all so much. Join us in 2 more weeks for our next Work at Home Mom Strategy Hour. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.